My name is Christopher Lane from the Philadelphia Printshop. We are purveyors of antique maps and prints from the 15th century up to the end of the 19th century. Many prints that are made, of course, are made by the Intaglio process, which is the process where some sort of plate has been inscribed and the ink is put into the grooves in the plate and then pressed. The most common type of plate used, and certainly up to the middle of the 19th century, was copper. So without copper and copper plates, half of our inventory wouldn't be here. So we're very fond of copper plate maps and prints. You did have woodcuts early on, but really from the 18th century on, 18th into the early 19th century, most prints were done as engravings or etchings or mezzotints on copper plates. Here are a couple examples of copper engraved items, a map and an architectural print of an urn by Passeri. These are done in the 18th century, which is really the heyday of the copper engraved print and map. Copper plates allowed people to work fairly easily and have very, very good detail. And you can see when you have something like a map, it had to have very close detail and information. But also copper allowed you to have quite a bit of texture by using different kinds of techniques. And if you look at the urn print, you can see that there's a real rich texture that was able to be achieved. We tell people a lot of times that one of the ways you can tell an antique print from certainly the 18th century is by the plate mark, and this is the mark, the edge of the plate, because with a copper engraving you incise the image into the copper plate, you put ink on it, it went into the grooves, you wiped the surface clean, then you put the paper on it and you ran it through a press which squeezed it, and what it did was it squeezed the paper so that it would expand up into the grooves and pick up the ink. And what that did is around the edge of the copper plate you have what's called a plate mark, and there are very good examples on here. And you can see on this print that you have an edge right around the edge, and that's the copper plate mark. That was the edge of the plate, and on the map you have the same thing. You can see that there's a nice edge around here, and that's one thing you want to look for to tell that it's an original print. Interestingly, some of the people who are making fakes actually put fake plate marks on their maps and prints, but you can usually tell those. They look a little different, but also one of the characteristics is copper was fairly expensive. So that they used as much of the plate as possible when they were making the printer map. So very rarely do you see wide space between the edge of the image, and if you look at here, there's quite a close space between the edge of the image and the plate mark. And that's fairly typical. They wouldn't have wasted it. On fake plate marks, you often have a plate mark that's out here, and when you see that, you know almost for sure that it's a reproduction.